Baltic, or Vitaldi, Shakoya, Nia, Baltic. Okay, so we learned yesterday that if someone sold a property and said Bar Ilan, except for the trees, I'm not including the trees in the sale, does he mean to exclude every little sapling that's growing? No, he's only looking to withhold those trees that are significant, that are prominent. So the last line on Daf Samach Tesamid Beis was Omarav Kol Sha'oilun Bechev. If it's a tree that you need a rope to climb up to scale to get up to the fruits on top, obviously we're talking about a tree that its fruits are on top, such as a palm tree, have a shear. That's what would be included in what the seller wanted to retain for himself. But if it's that small, you don't need a rope to scale it, have a shear. Those are definitely trees that this seller is not looking to retain for himself. However, the Dayane Goyla seem to have a difference of opinion, and they say it's kol shah oil koip shoy loy have a shear. If you drive by with your rig and you're banging into the tree, and the tree is so small and flexible that it'll just bend over when you walk by it as you're banging into it, and then it pops back into place. Once you're gone, that's too small to be considered a tree that someone would retrain for himself. But kol shehein ha'oil kayif shoy, if the oil doesn't drag it down, then it pops back up. Have a shear, that would be a shear, because when you're driving by with it in the rig and it's in the way, you won't be able to go, it's too strong. The Rishbam explains, kol she'ol kayif shoy, harsh and hoyu babakar sovav ha'ilam. They used to plow around the trees with these rigs. The oil so you have this oil which sticks out a little bit past the neck of the animal, so it was a little bit wider than the animal. If it hit a tree, it would just force the tree to bend over. And the shore would be able to continue on its way, because the tree would just bend by the force of the yoke pushing against it. That's not called a prominent tree. But if they're very, a very important thing. He's for sure trying to retain some tree for himself. So he probably means a bigger and more mature tree. But what if there were no mature trees in the field? All there were these trees that were still young and flexible. Then have a shear like we said on Amud Beis, that if there are no other trees other than these, even though they wouldn't be what our first choice would be as to what he's retaining for himself, if these are the only trees there, that's what he must have meant. Okay? But there's no machloikis for the pligi. They have different ways of determining if a tree is big enough. It depends on the type of tree. So by dikli, it will be told in if you need a rope to scale it. And by ilani, it's all about if it bends. And the Rishba makes an interesting point. The sheer daliyas chevel lo shayach b'hu. Climbing up a rope with a tree, it doesn't make any sense. A regular tree, you never need, no matter how big it is, you don't need a rope to scale, because you could just climb along the branches. It's only a palm tree that's smooth all the way up, and everything, all of its business is all the way on top. It's also possible to say that you cannot measure the palm tree by its flexibility. Even if it's flexible enough to bend over, it could still be a very prominent palm tree. If it's that big that you would need a rope to climb up to it. What if someone said, I'm selling all of the property except for this charuf? Now we already learned that by default, if you don't sell anything at all, when you sell a soda, it does not include the mature charuf trees that are already grafted, and by default, it doesn't include the mature sycamore trees. That's by default. But what if you spoke out, chutz mecharuf plani? I want to retain for myself this charuf. Would that be an indication that maybe you do want to sell the rest of them? Chutz misadam plani, mahu. Oisoi charuf hu delakani, hashar charuvim kani. By the fact that he said that, does that mean he wants to release all the other charuvim? Oidilma shar charuvim nami loikan. Or maybe the other charuvim were not kani either. So why did he say it for? Zok the Heilige Rashbam, chutz mecharuv amurka plani, chutz misadan ashikma plani, vayu baharba charuvim v'sedanim. Mao. What does he mean to say? The Imam V'shosek, had he not said anything at all, anyway, lo hayu mechur mechlal soder. So the fact that he said something, what is it? What is he trying to express? There could be an argument. He was trying to show that he is selling the other ones. Or maybe or maybe the fact that he said, I want to retain this particular haruf for myself, does not make him lose all of the rest. The bishvil sheyafa hamoicher es koyach shaloi shapirish beferish and in the moicherlach hahu charuf, he's trying to retain something for himself. He's expressing something that he's holding for himself, not that he's giving away. We should never translate that into meaning that he wants to give away more. Ella we could say that he's trying to retain something else for himself. Maybe what he's trying to do is say, I'm not just retaining the tree, but even if you hold moicher ben yofa moicher, I'm retaining the derech. I'm retaining myself access to the tree. Kedamer b'masnisin, like it says in our Mishnah, moider Rebbe Kiva, b'zman shomer lechutz me'elu she'ein tzorich likach derech. In our Mishnah, we learned by default when a person sells a field, he doesn't include the boiros. But according to Rebbe Kiva, he has not retained for himself a right to access those boiros. But if he says chutz from the boiros, then we say it means he wants to withhold an access for himself to get there. So that's how we would be able to interpret the chutz mecharuf ploni. All the other trees, he's not retaining an access to them. One tree, he's saying, I want to retain access to it as well. Chutz mecharuf ploni de kamar l'shayir derech l'hai dekel nischaven v'loy l'mayed hasham. He wasn't trying to tell you that he wants to sell the rest of the decalim. He was trying to show that he wants a pathway to this decal. And of course, the Bach says it's not decal, it's charuf, which is what we're talking about. Even according to Rabbanan, where anyway you had retained for yourself a path. So what are you trying to show by saying chutz mecharuf zeh? That one, he of course he's retaining them all, but that particular one he really, really liked. He wants to make sure that he won't even end up in a Torah about it. All the others, if the Lekech is not informed, he might take the Moicher to the Torah, and of course the Dayan will pass him with the Moicher that it's not included. But he wanted this to be so clear that it wouldn't even create a conflict. Once again, the concept of shufar the Torah is, even if the law is a certain way, better to itemize and be more clear. Why did he come up with he knows he'll get it anyway. So that is the discussion over here. Does he mean to say I'm including all the other charuvim, or is he just trying to carve something special out for himself related to this particular charuv? Amarle, so Rav Sheshes Paskin, loy kana. Very simple. Loy kana. He's not trying to exclude all the rest of the charuvim. In fact, he wants them all, including this one. Eifei freik the Gemara on Rav Sheshes. Chutz mecharuv plani, chutz misadan plani, loy kana. So it says not like what Rav Sheshes said. My love, oisoi charuv hu de loy kana. It's mashma that the charuv that he itemized, that is the charuv that leikeach is not kana. Harshar charuvin kana, but all the other charuvin are included in the sale. This is not how Rav Sheshes paskin. Amalei Rav Sheshes says that's not how you should be medayik from this brisa. Rather, loy afilu shar charuvin nami loy kana. When it says chutz mecharufloni, chutz misadan loy kana means the leikeach wasn't kana any charuv. Teda, and I'll prove it to you. Let's say I tell you, I'm selling you field A, I'm not including field B. So you're going to tell me that I'm including every other field I have? Of course not. He who the loikani. Are you going to tell me that so the B is not included? Yet all my other fields are kind of? Of course not. Because I was clear to you that I'm only selling you field A. So to here as well, you were not kind of the Lekech will not get any of the Charuvin, any of the Shikma. Rather, the fact that I spoke at one does not have an impact on the other. Bikadamri, there was another version as how this went down. What if someone said chutz mechatzi charuv ploin? I'm selling you my field, but I'm excluding half of this charuv, or chutz mechatzi sadan ploini, or half of this sycamore. Now, what would be the law? Shar charuvin vaday loikon. Now we're not even asking a question of the rest of the charuvin. Of course, all the other charuvin are not koiner, because by default they're never included in the sale. Will you at least say that the other half of the charuv that he specified he wants to withhold for himself, would you at least say there that it's an indication that he wants the buyer to receive at least half of one charuv, the charuv that he itemized? And therefore, Kani, even that half of charuv as well, he didn't mean to sell. And he's still paskin loy kani, he's not kani. Let's have a look. Let's have a look at the Rashbam. The Rashbam has it here in brackets, but I'm going to read it anyway. Amalei loy kana loy hu v'loy zulasa. He wasn't kani this, and he wasn't kani any other one either. The kivun shafilu loy pirish loy chutz. Even had he not said chutz from this half, kagoyin elu. Never are these types of trees ever included in the sale of a field. So too over here, you're not kind. So why did he say such an unusual lashon? Chutz mechatzi charuv plani. Well, I pirish halalu idea shekol ilan shavois esada harayhen k'moy elu v'ladim kuru. He was just trying to say, just like this half a tree that I'm saying is mine, every tree in the whole thing is mine. Again, why a guy would speak that way? Kasha. If it's not, we would lose sugyas of the Gemaras if people didn't speak in weird fashions. Think of how many Rosh Hashivas wouldn't have material if the Gemara didn't discuss these cases. So the Gemara challenged, again, the second version of what Rav Sheshes referred to when he said Lakana, Chutz mechatzi charuv ploni, Chutz mechatzi sadan ploni, Shar charuvin loikan. Talk to Gemara, my lab, Shar charuvin hu loikana. The rest of the charuvin in the tree, in the field, are not part of the sale. Hamash is shire charuv, but at least the other half of the charuv that he itemized, kana, maybe that the lekech will receive. Amalei Lo Rav Sheshes said, no, even that you're not kana. Afilu mash shire ba'oisei charuv nami loikan. And the same proof is before Teda. I'm selling you field number A, but I'm excluding half of field number B. Are you going to suggest are you going to tell me that the other half of B is sold? Of course not. I'm only selling you field A. So why someone used a weird language? Kasha. But of course, he does not mean to include half of the other field in the sale. Let's just have a quick look at the Rashbam, the fourth line down in the wide lines. Ela loikani hachinami loikani klaimar ela pshita came pshitalon the loikani halakech sharson. Surely the lakech is not coining any other field other than field A, which was what the sale was. The hamocher soda achas loimocher kolcha sodoisa b'chlal. Anybody who sells one field amongst his fields, he's surely not intending to sell all of his fields in that transaction. Ubishvil sha'amar shtus zeh, just because he said something stupid, put misada pliny, ein lanu loimar shemocher mashalei ratzalimkar. Because someone says something stupid, we're not going to make that into something that it's not, and that it means he's trying to sell other fields. Because clearly the sada achas neschav and limkar for loy shtei sadas. He only intended to sell one property. Hachanami amoicher shesada loy mocher charuv v'sada. They're never included. These prominent trees are never included in the sale of a property. The chashivi sada b'fnei. You should look at them as if they're a completely different field, not as an accessory to the field that he's selling. Just because he said something stupid and he excluded something from the sale, which was anyway excluded from the sale, don't build out of that he had an intention to sell others. Okay, now we have a very interesting sugya that has nothing to do with our sugya, so we're leaving what we call the dry technical assessments of what's included in a sale contract, and we're getting back to more of a lomdashish sugya. Why is it introducing this shaila over here? You know why it's introducing it over here? Zok to Rashbam, mishum the dayane goylo nakat lahacha. Once we're talking about dayane goyla, we're going to bring up another discussion that occurred with the dayane goyla. So we're now leaving temporarily Bava Batra. I'm going to go back to Bava Batzil. Boy minei Rab Amma Rab Chisda. Hamafkid etzel chaveirei b'shtar. I had a watch, a Rolex watch, and I gave it to a shomer, and I made him write me a star that he received from me this watch. This is not that unusual. Someone gives in a Rolex watch to fix, and he gets a receipt that he gave that watch. And then when he goes to pick up his watch, the shomer tells him, I'm sorry, I gave it back to you. You picked it up a week ago. The Rashbam says, even the same day. He said, I gave it back. Now, what is Allah? Do you say? Normally, you can't be believed to say that you gave it back. I have a star. But you have another way out. You're at the most, you're a shomer socher. So you could have said nensu. Therefore, you had a way. If you wanted a lie, you had something that you could have said that could not have been countered. Mehemen, he would have been believed. Hash nami mehemen. Now, even though I'm saying something that's not as acceptable because I'm saying I gave it back and you still have your star, maybe I'm believed because of that. Migo, I could have said nensu. Oidilma, or maybe, let's see the Lashon Abach in the Aleph. Oidilma, motzi omerle, the person who's picking up the watch can tell the watchmaker, my boy. If in fact I already got the watch back, how is it that I'm holding the star? You would never have released a watch without me giving you the paper. As they say, no tiki, no watchy, right? Amalei, Zekt Gemara, Mehemet. So who paskin this? Rab Amram, Rab Chisda paskin, Mehemon, you trust the shomer, Migudei, he could have said Nensu. And the owner of the object would have had no recourse. He's also Mehemet to say that he gave it back. But Frank Gemara, why taka? V'lei malei, starcha b'yodi, my boy. Let him actually say, starcha b'yodi, my boy. I have a good right. How could you be believed that you gave it back? Why am I holding the star? Amalei. So he answered back, ulitaimech, based on you that you have a time of starcha b'yodi, my boy, you're ignoring the time of migul. V'chi amalei nensu. Me matzi amalei, starcha b'yodi, my boy. His nemonus of nensu would have circumvented the problem of starcha b'yodi, my boy. So therefore, through the migo of nensu, it should invalidate, it should neutralize the time of starcha b'yodi, my boy. Right, the victor, but it's a migo b'makamedim. How could you be believed? Yeah. Right, that's what you're asking. I can see from your expression. Amalei. So he told him. So let's deal with a victor's kasha first. Why isn't this a migo b'makamedim? Right? Like it would be if it was a case of a loan, right? In the case of a loan, we already said you're not neman with a migu b'makamedim. So the Rashbam asks the victor's kasha. Let's look. Yeah. My boy. Yeah. So it's like an anan tahadi that I wouldn't have given you back your watch till I received the star. So let's look at the bottom Rashbam. It's 4 lines from the bottom. Hilchach loymotzi lemitin mafkid shtorcha b'yodi, my boy. The mafkid chenatanya. V'lama li l'shakir b'mokamedim loy domi. It's not considered a lama li l'shakir the ulama. I didn't read it. Ulama li l'shakir b'mokamedim loy domi. It's not compared to a mali l'shakir b'mokamedim. It's not a migu kinegedim. You know why? The ha'ovid inish lemitchi v'amar avadati ashtari. a person could say, I lost my star. In other words, so the shomer can say, yes, I got the star back, but I lost it and you probably picked it up. You don't say that when it comes to a malva and a loiva, right? The nifgad nami lo have a chayish l'shtora. The nifgad wouldn't have been concerned. We should have a moti lemipta nafti b'tanasonis. Normally, we'll tell a loiva, are you crazy? You lost your star. That's not a good excuse. You should have kept that star in Fort Knox because that's the way he's going to be won from you. But the nifgad, the shremer could say, nah, I wasn't so careful about my star because I knew I'd have weighed it anyway. I could have said then. So that's the reason why I don't be so careful with my star. Avol malvas chaver b'shtar leimati toin loiva paraiti the amalei idach shor chabiyat my boy. Like a loiva lekal shomigui. By a loiva you don't have a migui. The afilu ton nensu, even if he would have said nensu, tarch l'shalom. The milva loitonit. A loiva doesn't have a kind of nensu. A nifka does, so he has an excuse that he wasn't so careful. He wasn't so careful. So that is the nafkamina that the Rashba makes.
It turns into a circular problem because if he doesn't come with the star to pick it up because I lost the star.
Right.
And then that star is found, then the person who finds the star can say, I have the star, give me the watch.
Correct.
Yeah. So who's going to release? Why would somebody release it without the star?
Normally something that you shouldn't do. But the fact of the matter is, since he has a way out, he could say, you know, struck me in my boy, he's going to ride it. I lost it. I lost it. The
star is pointless, and holding on to it is pointless because you can always claim that something unavoidable happened to you.
Well, if for the nifka to hold on to it, there's a very good reason. It'll avoid controversy. So it's for sure best practice to hold on to it.
Okay.
But losing it isn't catastrophic.
No, but I'm saying what's the point of asking for the star or doing anything when you're the one who's holding on, when you're the shomer, because you can always say something unavoidable happened.
True.
He didn't make that
but
time.
There's best practices.
Why do we assume, why is the Gemara, let him make that time? How does he have a migu without even
that's how every migu works. I said A, but I could believe me, because if I was a crook, I had a much better thing that I could have said.
But the thing that he said, I understand how the migu works. But the thing that he said doesn't absolve him of any problem.
It probably have having to give it back.
Only because we believe him, only because of the migu.
Correct.
Right. But he's not making that time. If he's an ehrlich guy,
he isn't making that time. He's saying I give it back.
Saying I give it back without any receipt.
Correct. No, I gave it back. You gave me the receipt, and I lost it. And I lost it. He's not saying I give it back without a receipt. He's saying I lost it.
But if the receipt if nobody has the receipt, then it's not a problem.
Of course, because who said I ever gave it to you? Then I could say lahada.
Yeah,
how does it answer the
It's not b'makamedim. There's an anan sahadi that a loiva would never lose his star. So if he doesn't have a star and the malva has a star, we don't believe him that he lost the star and the malva found it. The malva knows the loiva never paid. That's why you don't have the star. Because if you really paid, you would have been holding on to that star. But by a shomer, we don't say that. We don't say if you were really paid, you would hold on to your star. No, I gave it back and then I lost the star. I threw the receipt out. I didn't think I need to, right? Let me ask you a question. You go pick up your watch from the watchmaker and you give him the receipt. You think he holds on to the receipt? He throws it out. What stops you from coming tomorrow and saying you want to pick it up again?
I don't have the receipt anymore.
Well, what if you go through his garbage and you find it?
That's it. Destroy the receipt.
Okay, I don't know if he does. He doesn't. You know why? Because even if you come back, I'll say Densu. So he has an insurance policy. Since he has an insurance policy, he's not so concerned. So you don't have the Anan Sahadi anymore. So it's not Miga B'Mokamedim anymore, because it's not an Anan Sahadi that he would have held on to the star. But by a loiva, there is.
That's right.
On the spike, that's right.
It's canceled, right? Right, canceled, and you strike it out.
He has a Migo, I could have burned your shirt. Zog Gemara, the Ramal Nensu, mi matzi amal ishtarcha b'yadi, my boy. If he said Nensu, could he be able to say that? Elamai, he had no honor connected that. Amalei, so he answered back, he still shouldn't be Neman. You know why? Saif, ki amalei Nensu. Let's say he would have tanied Nensu. Lav shavua boy. Wouldn't he have to make a shavuos hashemrim if it was Nensu? Of course he would. So, but over here you're saying he's Neman to say he gave it back. You're saying he's scot-free. He's like, well, no, I'm not saying he's scot-free. He's Rabbi Chisda. Hachanami my Neman b'shua. Assure Rabbi Chisda says if you say you gave it back, we believe you with the migul. But of course, he would still have to make a shvua because his miguli of Nensu would only have been believed had he made a shvua. Let's suggest that this discussion here, where Reb Chisda said that the shomer is neman to say that I gave it back, and the other tzad that's challenging Reb Chisda, who tells us that I'm not neman, and I would have to pay, the migu doesn't work. Let's say that this is totally in a machlokes of the following tanoim. The Tanya we learn. Starkis hayotze al yisayim. Now we know if there's a star choiv that's yotze al yisayim, the yisayim can't swear because they don't know exactly whether or not their father paid back. So if I'm a malva and I have a star on the estate of the yisayim, I could swear that I never received payment, and then I can collect from the yisayim. But what if I had an iska with the father? We know what is an iska. It's chatzi milva, chatzi pikadon. And the father dies. Now the malva or the investor, we call the malva the investor, and we call the person doing the work as the entrepreneur, right? So the investor comes to the children of the entrepreneur and says, "I want my money back." Now here we have a different problem. The tzara milva, for sure I should get back, because once I swear that I didn't receive payment, I'm entitled to it back. But the tzara pikadon, I don't necessarily have a right to get back, because he should be able to be nemun with amigo of densu. Maybe we should tanya that for the children. So that's how the Rishram explains it. Let's see the Rishram inside. Starkis hayotze al yisayim Ruvain shenosan moish l'Shimon l'machtzescha. Reuben was the venture capitalist. Shimon was the entrepreneur. The concept of loy star kama hifkidloy, and they wrote a star how much was the value of the investment. Umei Shimon, and now the entrepreneur died. And now the venture capitalist wants to repossess his capital. By Yisayim Tainin, Yisayim are claiming Shema Avinu Hechzirula. Maybe our father had already paid you back and we were unaware of it. Inami, Tainis Boritan, or maybe they're saying we know he paid you back. Ve'ilu hayom malva ba'alma. If this was a regular chayiv, not an investment, Shehil v'Ruvain l'Shimon, where Ruvain lent money to Shimon, Umei Shimon, and then Shimon died, that wouldn't be a question. Hula alma moidu, the nishba Ruvain, v'goy v'kol ashtar min ha'yisayim. All Reuben has to do is swear that he never received payment, and with the star, he could collect all of his money. The less la'avuon shum taina gabim alva. There's nothing, had his father been alive, had Shimon been alive, there's nothing that he could have said to get out of paying. I have a star. Therefore, he couldn't tell Nensu because it wasn't a pikadon, it was a halva. So there was no way out. So therefore, now that Reuben is coming after the Yisayimim, all that would have happened was Elah Yonishba, Reuben will swear to the Yisayimim, I never received payment. Right? Just like if the loiva was alive, just like if Shimon was alive, he could demand a shavua from the malva, from the collector, that he hasn't paid yet, he hasn't received payment, and therefore by Yisayimim we make the same argument on their behalf. They got b'yasim today, the lo yodei limitam. They can't say I paid back because they don't know if their father paid back. Therefore, tanina lahu v'nishba v'goy v'choy. But this case is more complicated because half of this arrangement is a pikadon. Aval ha'ashdod have a kula milva, ela palga milva upalga pikadon. Kedin kol mois and the sunas lemechtes char kedim afarish v'azil. Like every investment works, like every iska works. Who the pligi dayani goyla dani shmuel v'karna. The dayane of the goyla who were Shmuel and Karna. The dayane Eretz Yisrael dani Ravami Ravati. There is a machlokes about the halakha. So let's analyze halakha. So again, the Tanya. Shtakiz hayotze al yisayimim dayane goyla amri nishba v'goyva kuloi. Meaning, the loiva is not neman to say I paid back migu that I could have said nensu, and that's why it has to be paid back in full, which is not like Rab Chisda. With the Yonei Eretz Yisrael army, Nishba v'Goyva Mechta, you only could collect the Tzara Milva, but on the Tzara Pikadon, they're nemon to say we paid back migu that we could have said nensu, which is what Rab Chisda passed. Now let's break down this shaila. This whole Yisod is based on how we just described the structure of a iska is. So we already are past that point, but the Gemara is going to go through that point now to clarify that we're talking about an iska which is chatzi milva and chatzi pekad. The kula alma isnu the nardoi. Everybody holds of the shita of the nardoi. The army nardoi high iska palga milva upalga pekad. Every iska is split. Half of it is a loan, and half of it is a pekad. My love, so therefore, now that we know that both the Dayane Goyla and both the Dayane Eretz Yisrael both agree that this is Chatzi Milva, Chatzi Pekadon, so why is there a difference of opinion as to whether or not the Chatzi Pekadon has to be returned to the investor? The Ma'ir Tobar Motzi Omerlei Shtorcha B'Yadi my boy. The Dayane Goyla said, I could say Shtorcha B'Yadi my boy, and therefore the investor can collect all of his money back. Umar Savar by the Dayane Eretz Yisrael say Loy Amrinon. You don't say. I think there's a longer shtickle. Loy Matzi Amalei going to the back. The back adds in a lot of words. Loy Matzi Amalei Shtarcha B'Yadi my boy. You wouldn't be able to say that. Which is what is Reb Chisda? Reb Chisda is nema. So according to Reb Chisda, you'd only pay back half, and therefore he agrees with the Dayane Eretz Yisrael that you cannot say Shtorcha B'Yadi my boy because I have a migo that I could have said that. And that's what the Gemara wants to say, that this halacha of Reb Chisda is totally in a machlokes between the Dayane Eretz Yisrael and the Dayane Bava. Dr. Marloy, you don't have a raya that it's totally separate. Maybe the Chula Alma is the Reb Chisda. Really, both the Dayane Goyla and the Dayane Eretz Yisrael agree with Reb Chisda that you cannot say Shtorcha B'Yadi my boy. So what is the svara of the Dayane Goyla who hold that I can collect everything? The Mar Savar, the Mandamar who holds that the Yisraelim have to pay back in full, even the Tanah Pekod, and they're not them, but they say we pay back with a Migu of Nensu, is because in Isa de Pare, there's a much stronger raya in this case that the father, the deceased, never paid back. Because if Itaka did pay back, Meimer Hava Omar, he would have for sure told his children I paid back, and he didn't. So that's an extra Malva and Loiva or Shomer. There I have a taina that I could have said Nensu. But here, if I Taka paid back, I would have told my children. And there's an extra raya supporting the fact that the loan was never repaid. But Umar Sabar, but the Dayane Goyla hold, Eimer Malachamav Sudanse. He was planning to tell them. He died, so he paid. And that day, before he even got up from work, he had a heart attack and he died. So therefore, it's not a raya that he didn't tell them. He was going to tell them, he didn't have a chance to tell them. So I guess the shaila is based on such a likelihood of him dying before he would have a chance to inform his children. Is that enough of a likelihood that we should be choshesh for it? And therefore, that would impact whether or not we would force the children to pay back or not. If we hold that maybe he paid back but he didn't tell them, then we don't force the children to pay back. But if we hold he would have surely told them had he paid back, then we do force the kid to pay back. Sholach Avuna bar Avin. Again, I gave somebody my watch with a star, and he claims that he gave it back. Nemon, he's nem, which tells us that you have a migoi. Clearly, you have a migoi that says, since I could have said Nansu, I'm also nemon to say I gave it back, even though you're still holding the star. There's another halach, he said. Which tells us that they're not nemon on the tzara pikadon to say we gave it back, migud inensu, because they have to pay back the whole thing. So these two piskei halacha are contradictory. Tarti, are they not contradictory? Which is the same question we asked a moment ago, and the Gemara answers it the same way we answered it a moment ago. Shiny hosam the isa de pari meimer hava omar. In the case of shtarkis, even though normally a shomer is nemon to say he gave it back, migud that he said nensu. But children cannot have that taina because had it been paid back, the children would have known about it. Rava Omar, Rava says, Hilchasa Nishba V'Goyva Mechza. So Rava clearly says that the children don't have the Nemonos. I guess he holds of the Svara, the Misa de Pare, Meimar Hava Amma. Amma Marzutra, Hilchasa Kedayone Goyla. We pass like the Dayane Goyla. The Dayane Goyla said that they have to give back the whole thing, right? Rava clearly argues on the Dayane Goyla because he said Nishba V'Goyva Mechza. So Amalei Ravina Marzutra, you're telling me that Rava is arguing with the Dayane Goyla? Ha'amar Rava Nishba V'Goyva Mechza. Rava said Nishba V'Goyva Mechza, which is contradictory to the Dayane Goyla. Amalei, no, it's not contradictory. Anon, the Dayane Goyla, Ibchamasnin law. We learned it the opposite, that it was the Dayane Goyla who says that they only have to pay back half, and it's the Dayane Yisrael who holds they have to pay back in full. So Rava holds that you pay back half. Rava holds that is what the Dayane Goyla said as well. Okay, simple. Tomorrow we're getting back to Bava Basra. We had a little glimpse of Bava Metzia. We should have an awesomely wonderful day. I'm not sure how many of us did accomplish at least 50% of what we wanted to on the long weekend. Everybody has these big plans of what they're going to accomplish on the long weekend. I can honestly say I was lucky enough to finish 10% of what I had planned to, but I did 150% of all the other things that popped up to pull me away from what my main focus was. Hashem should help us at least today we should accomplish whatever we need to. And then some. No, today we should be even more lucky. We should get our employees to accomplish whatever we were supposed to yesterday. And Hashem should help that our sukkah should be part of